But now I'm going to go into the numbers. The stuff that's going to be required to help you to get to at least $10 million a year if you want. Whose goal, if we're being honest, is it to get to $10 million a year? Raise your hand. If we're being honest. I know it's a stretch for some of you guys. Okay, I like it. I like it. How many of you guys, raise your hand, if you want to just get to an extra $1 million a year? Raise your hand. An extra $1 million, you'd be okay. I know. I talk with big numbers now because I see a lot of data, okay? But the difference between what's stopping you from $250,000 a year to $10 million a year is 4 things. Who you hire, who you praise in public and in private, who you promote, and who you protect. These are the 4 things. Who do you hire? Why are you hiring them? Who do you praise in public or private? Who do you promote? Right? You ever heard the concept of a player-coach fallacy? Where Michael Jordan, best player on the planet in basketball, do very horrible as a coach, right? Sometimes we promote our best person, they're a bad leader, right? So who do you promote? Who do you protect, right? Is there someone in your organization right now pulling everybody down, but you're protecting them because you have such a good relationship with them and at the jeopardy of everybody else that's a winner? That's how you lose A players. You protect C players. Does this make sense for everybody? Nod your head. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so let's get into it. Oh, there's a quick question. All right, so then I asked the question. When I said these things, when you guys have spoken to me and I've told you guys a lot about your business, and I'm like, oh, this is what's happening in your business. This is how it's happening. You're like, well, how do you know that stuff? It all comes to, if I asked the question, well, if there's one number to determine this, is my business growing? Is my business stagnant? Is my business profitable? Is my business productive? Whether or not your business is going to be prepped for scale or you're about to go under. Is there really one number that could determine all these things? I can tell you that because it took us 36 months to go from 0 to $10 million. Might know something, right? Might know a thing or two, okay? And this one core number came up because before we were doing what we're doing now, David was a client of mine in a different venture I was in, and we took that company from 0 to $100,000 a month within 5 months. Sounds good, right? But that business went under by month 7. We were refunding just as fast as we were selling. A bomb exploded, me and the guy, if he was in front of me, it would probably have been like a fist fight kind of relationship. And I had this internal turmoil with me that would never happen again. Has anyone ever experienced that? Where you have this extreme blow up that you're like, never again will this happen to me. Then I come to a scenario where me and David were at a mastermind, and we were talking to, actually we're at an event, and we were talking to a buddy of his, and I was talking to the guy next to him, and he just asked me a question. He goes, what do you do, XYZ? I asked him what does he do, and he was like, oh yeah, I ran this thing. I was doing $500,000 to $600,000 a month. And I asked him one number, one question, and I said, oh, your business burned to the ground too, didn't it? He said, how did you know? So then I was like, I was hooked. Wouldn't you? You see something and you're like, how do I identify this pattern? It came back to one number, always. Over and over and over, it came back to this one thing. Revenue per employee. What did you say? Yeah, I was just making jokes. Revenue per employee. How many of you guys have ever heard that concept before? Raise your hand, right? Revenue per employee. I had never heard that thing before. I was just doing the thing. I'd never heard that. But then I started going on this journey to figure out what the heck is revenue per employee? Like, what is that? right? And let me define that, what that is. So revenue per employee is the average amount of revenue each staff member contributes to a company. So the way you do it is you just get your total revenue for the year, for 2025, the whole year, and then divide it by your full-time employees. Not your seasonal people, not your contractors, not your fractional people. That's not part of that. It's your full-time people, okay? Everybody got that? Full revenue, not tax season revenue, full revenue. Every time I ask you guys the revenue, you're like, in tax season I made $250,000. I'm like, no, but you have a whole year left, right? So how did I learn? One, I learned it through that process right there, the very bad thing that happened to me. Then I went to this event with a gentleman he went from zero to $700 million a year within 7 years. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Very interesting. That same gentleman had apparently, it's documented, he exited his company for 77 times EBITDA. Yeah, some of you guys are like, what? That's a big number, right? Yeah, Tammy knows. Does anybody know what, well, let me just explain. EBITDA is profit. For those of you that don't know what that is. I didn't know what that was. Now I did. So he said this thing, and when I hear this gentleman talk, I'm like a complete idiot. I'm like, no way. So this gentleman, he starts talking, and he says, what's your revenue per employee? To many, many different people. And I'm like, why does he keep asking that question? And so I asked the same question to myself, and I was looking at it. How many of you guys know the company called Ernst & Young? Ernst & Young? Raise your hand. You know that company, Ernst & Young? Everyone pretty much knows that. So I look at it, and they do this, what is it, like a letter to the shareholders, something like that, every year, where you send out the document, and you see all the P&Ls and all the stuff's going on in the company, and I don't know what that is. But anyways, I looked at this, and the number one thing that was at the top of the thing was how much revenue per employee they were making. I think it was like, they made like $35 billion, and they had 20,000 employees. But the thing that stood out to me was their revenue per employee was $350,000 revenue per employee. And y'all know that people that work at Ernst & Young probably have some good money, right? They make some good money. I mean, they work hard, but they make some good money. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Then, that same mastermind, I have a buddy. He wasn't a buddy then, but this is how I made him a buddy of mine. This is how I made him a buddy. So he was making $22 million a year. I didn't know that at the time. I was in a mastermind, similar like what you guys are in. I was in a little circle, everyone there doing $1 million or more to be there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of nervous to talk to people. Like, as you guys can't tell, hard for me to, do those things. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, hey, man, what's up? How you doing? Da-da-da. And then we're like, how much did you do last year, right? That was the number one thing I asked. I was like, how much did you do? How are you here? Why are you here? He said, well, I did $22 million last year. And then I go, okay, cool. And then he asked me, and then I was like, oh, cool. Well, how many team members you got? Like literally those two questions. I said, how many team members you got? And he says, 12? And I said, hey, I asked 3 questions. Were you in the military? Were you an engineer? Or have you done this before? And he said, I'm in the military. He said, how do you know? And I said, because your revenue per employee. That means you're either really, really efficient, you have good pricing, you have good team. All of those things are being true. The higher the revenue per employee, the better the profits, obviously, because, right, you payroll. The better the efficiency of the system, the better the effectiveness of the people in the system, and the better the pricing you have inside of that system. So that's how I made him my friend. Now me and him chat all the time. But he said, nobody has ever asked me that question, Dan. Nobody knew my business and knew what was going on until you asked me that question. How do you know all this? And I was like, I just told him the same thing I just told you guys about the $700 million guy. And so I was like, I'm hooked. How do I apply this to tax firms? Because how does it apply to you guys, right? Those are big, different businesses. So then I did the search. I was like, what about professional services? Right? By the way, you guys are professional services. If you did not know, you guys are professional services. Okay? If revenue per employee goes below $150,000 per person, you're going to run super low margins. And maybe not to the degree of like 10% margins, but probably like 30% margins, right? And after scaling the companies and helping you guys scale and teaching you guys the methods and I could tell you guys, if you're going from $1 million to probably $3 million, you probably have to have a 57 to 62% profit margin before you scale up, because you're going to lose profit on your way up to go to 2.5 or so or more. And I'll cover that a little bit, but if you guys have questions, I can tell you all about that. But that's not part of this. But I'm telling you this to tell you this, like that number right there dictates everything in the company, because it now allows me to kind of have a gauge by which, like Sanjay says, well, I want to backfill. I want to have a bench. Well, how much bench can you afford and for how long, right? This number gives you that, okay? In professional services, firms with over 250,000 revenue per employee have the most profitable EBITDA, this is sage.com, of 20% or more profit, okay? Now, some of you guys have way more than that. I met some of you guys in this room. I'm going to give you some case studies. I met some of you guys in this room. Make almost $2 million. Your net profit is 1.7, 1.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's a great money, right? Pretty great money. Challenge is everything rises to you, right? Everything becomes very difficult. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. Once I saw that, I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I apply this thing for everything that I do? Then we applied it with an amazing young lady here. Her name is Maribel. I love Maribel. Here's why. She told me, when she met us, she said, Dan, I want to get rid of this business. I don't want this thing. I said, why? She's like, I got so much headaches. It's just like a lot of stuff. And I talked to her recently, and she said, you know, Dan, when I met you guys, I was babysitting people. Any of you guys feel like you're babysitting people in your company? No? Everyone feels like everybody's just rocking and rolling? Okay. Yeah, solid. You guys got a good team. We're in the wrong place. Just kidding. But she said this. She said, before, I had to take care of my team. Now, my team takes care of me. What a stark contrast, right? How many of you guys have that right now? Or are you the alternative, right? Revenue per employee was the target, because I helped her, we helped her quantify how much could she pay? How much could she afford to give up to get a good person to replace her job, like Sanjay says? How much could they afford? Okay, so what is revenue per employee target? $200,000 revenue per employee minimum. That's your target from now on. From now on, and yes, I understand some of you guys are like, well, tax returns are very cheap. How do I get that? It's okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? This now becomes your new target. This is your North Star, if you will. From now on, this is your North Star. Anything below that should be unacceptable. This is where the financial discipline and business discipline comes into play, and say, we will not hire until we hit this target. Because we know that statistically speaking, if we do not have these things in place, then we're going to burn ourselves to the ground, or we're going to have payroll bloat, by which we don't have enough revenue to pay the people. How many of you had to ever lay someone off because you didn't have the money? Okay, good. I hope that never happens to you, okay? But it happens in real life, and that's why I'm telling you guys, this is the target. Some of you guys have more, most of you guys have less. I've talked to you guys about your firm. But the idea here is you want to have that as your target. And that's your North Star. That's your North Star. You're not going to go and tell your team like revenue per employee. They wouldn't understand. But for you as an entrepreneur, business owner, that should be your target, because it tells you the efficiency of the business. It tells you your pricing's on match. It tells you, a lot of those things back to that point, okay? So note on that, contractors, part-time, or commission-based employees are not calculated in this number. So just full-time people. So if you have someone that's, working with you part-time, don't put them into that, Don't put them into that. If they work for you for the tax season, don't put them into that. Just full-time people on your staff, because this is an efficiency ratio of the people that are in your team. Did you guys get it? Hold on, give you a second. Take a picture of that if you need to. Yeah. I'm going to have enough time to answer some questions, by the way. I knew there was going to be a lot of questions. Okay. We good? Yeah. Okay. So, some of you guys just said in your head, but Dan, not everyone in my company makes money. Who said that? Raise your hand. Be honest. All right. I love it. I love it. So, let me tell you something. Let me show you something that you guys have probably never experienced or heard from. Because remember, I like to pull things and make them simple and build them up. Like, well, how do I make this a process? How do I make it a system? In every company, yours included, the 50,000 firms that I've seen that have come through, try to get some of the stuff that we have, they fit into these 3 buckets. Everyone. Those who make money. Those who keep money. And those who multiply money. That's it. Everyone in your company needs to fall into those 3 buckets. That's it. Kind of cool, right? It's a new way to look at it. Are they in one of these 3 buckets? Okay? So, now you have a decision-making framework. Do they fit into which bucket, right? Those who multiply money are marketing people because they give more leads to salespeople. You guys are the salespeople, by the way, just so you know. Unless you're like Sanjay and has a salesperson, which is cool. Okay? Ops are people who multiply money, right? Because they make everyone more efficient, more effective. They make the salesperson just stay on the phone. Once you get a salesperson doing operations, you don't have a salesperson. Do you get that? So that's why they're important. The people who keep money. These are your tax professionals, the doers, the accountants, the client success. They help you guys make sure that the money keeps coming. It's the first time I've ever showed this. This is an exciting slide for me. I was like, yes, finally I get something to put it into. Okay? So, a note on this. The job of the money makers is to make money. Plain and simple. That's why I told you about the salesperson. The job of a salesperson is to sell. Period. If they're doing anything besides that, they're not doing their job. And it's not their fault. It's because we didn't get the money multipliers or the keep money people to support them. Because that's their whole job, is to make sure that the people who are making money keep making money. You guys are the money makers. So you guys should literally find everyone else to do everything else except you doing this. You're the money maker. Your job is to make the money until you get the salespeople, and then you do that. Okay? The job of everyone else is to do everything else so the money makers can make more money. Does this make sense? You can nod your head or do the yes. Some people are conflicted. They're like, I don't know, because everyone's supposed to make money in my business, and now I'm not. What am I supposed to do? I get it. You're confused. That's okay. That means you're listening. It's good. Okay? And it's a new concept.